Welcome to Liberty Nation TV. I'm your host, Scott Cosenza, with Liberty Nation's managing editor, Mark Angelides, our man on the ground in the British Isles, to report on the landslide victory that the Conservatives won and what that means for Brexit and the future. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Can you give us an overview of the results of the election and what it means for the political landscape?
Absolutely. A brief overview would be that Boris Johnson, leading the Conservative Party, have won the most significant victory in a generation in terms of their majority, which, bearing in mind the polls, as they often do, always predict something slightly different. It was predicted that there would be either a hung parliament, which means that Boris Johnson doesn't have quite a large enough majority to get his agenda through, his manifesto through, or that maybe Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, could swing a sneak victory. But as it turned out, the Conservatives pulled up, I think it's 364 seats at the time of recording. There is still one seat outstanding. Out of 650, which gives him a working majority so far of 47, which is a very healthy majority. It's the biggest one in over 30 years. And the Labour Party did incredibly poorly. So this was very much a victory for the Brexit-minded, for those who want Brexit to be, whether they're ecstatic about Brexit taking place or whether they're just wanting to end the indecision and get on with what was voted for in 2016. It's a good result for those two groups.
I think that from an American's perspective, that your country has been paralyzed, it seems like, for quite a while now, with the inability to move forward on so many things because of hanging in limbo with this Brexit. I imagine even people who might wish to remain would be happy about a firm path forward. Assuming that's true, give us the down and dirty. How does this leave Brexit, Mark?
Well, here's the thing. Your analysis there is correct. I have family members myself who voted to remain, but who now just want Brexit done and over with. The limbo you mentioned is very much a case because what you've had is a parliament that hasn't had the majority to get through almost anything, really. So it's been very much a lame duck parliament. And the only issue that's really on people's minds, despite what many parties campaigned on this election, is can we move forward with Brexit? And so a lot of talk was given to this election being a second referendum in many ways. And if Boris Johnson had lost, well, then there would have almost certainly been either a second referendum or a repeal of Brexit entirely, and then heading back to the status quo as a full EU member. As it turned out, Boris Johnson won the election, a massive victory for him. And therefore now he can either, but before the 31st of January 2020, he can either go ahead with the withdrawal agreement that he's already negotiated with the other EU 27, or, and this is what a lot more of the more hardline Brexiteers would favor, is he's now in a position that if he wanted to, he could repeal the additional legislation that's been put in place to prevent a World Trade Organization Brexit, or as anti-fans of the World Trade Organization deal, they call it no-deal Brexit or cliff edge Brexit. But he can now, if he chooses to, he can withdraw that legislation through an act of parliament and actually go for a full World Trade Organization Brexit.
Mark, I enjoyed your written piece for LibertyNation.com where you laid out the vote totals for all the different parties. And at the end, you said he walked into 10 Downing Street and said, first breakfast, then Brexit, I guess, was the line. And I want to know, for what, in terms of dates or months, what is the next time we can look into Brexit and see, okay, is he committed to moving the ball, and is the ball moving? Is it a week's thing? Is it a month's thing? What are we talking about here? Okay, as we record on December 13, 2019.
So the most important date will be January 31st, 2020. At that point, if nothing else changes, then Britain will leave the EU with the withdrawal agreement that Boris Johnson has already negotiated with the EU. Now, things could happen before that. And as I mentioned just now, that could involve him trying to repeal earlier legislation, or just opting flat out for a WTO Brexit, which we should know either the first week of January, 7th, 8th of January, or depending on what he does with his cabinet selection, which could be a very keen indicator of which direction he's planning to take. We could know this week.
Okay. Now, we know that Nigel Farage started a Brexit Party, and his party did not fare well in the vote count. Is he a winner or a loser in this process? And who else sort of needs to be marked in one of those columns as a result of the vote?
Sure. Well, Nigel Farage, I would say, is a winner. He may not have won any seats, but perhaps that wasn't his overall intention. It seems that he initially had 650 candidates lined up, which was one for every constituency in the country, and then decided to pull over half of those candidates because he didn't want to endanger the possibility of Brexit happening by granting a victory to the Labour Party.
By splitting the vote for Tory or Conservatives with the Brexit Party.
Now, what happened was most of the seats that his party stood in were in the north of England, which are the Labour heartlands. These are places where, for historical and cultural reasons, people haven't elected a Conservative MP for more than 50 years. Now, what happened was Nigel Farage offered them a palatable alternative to vote for. So what you had was a lot of the normal Labour voters who could never vote for the Conservative Party. They had somebody to vote for, and that split the Labour vote straight down the middle in some cases, allowing the Conservatives to gain a majority. And other fallen kings would include Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, who leading his party into the worst election since 1935 for them, will not be leading the party any longer. And Jo Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, who promised a second referendum or a complete repeal of Brexit, she actually lost her seat and is no longer either a parliamentarian or the leader of her party.
Sounds like a real trouncing of Conservatives over Liberals. At least in the American definition of the term. All right. For two people separated by a common language, thank you so much, Mark.
Pleasure.
And thank you for watching. This is Scott Cosenza for LibertyNation.com. Bye-bye.
Hi, folks. Lisa K. Donner here, Editor-in-Chief of LibertyNation.com. We hope you enjoyed watching this video, maybe even learned a thing or two. If so, please take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there in the corner. Thanks so much.